So what is the best Canon camera lens that's affordable for making YouTube videos? In this video, I'm going to show you 4 different lenses that you can consider using when it comes to videography and photography with Canon cameras. Now, look, there's a lot of different types of cameras that we can consider using, like Sony or Panasonic or Canon or Fujifilm. I personally choose Canon as my go-to cameras for making YouTube videos. Now, people have different preferences. What I can say is that a lot of big YouTubers like, say, Casey Neistat use Canon cameras, so it's probably a pretty safe bet to go for that. But once you have your Canon camera, which lens should you use? And I'll tell you that most people end up using a kit lens, especially when they first start on YouTube. And there's nothing wrong with using a kit lens, but the problem with it is that the quality of glass and the aperture on some of these lenses for kit lenses, well, they're not very great. They're sort of subpar in some cases, and you can still get by with using a kit lens, but it's not the best option out there. So I'm going to show you 3 other options in this video for lenses that are relatively affordable, especially in the world of lenses that are going to be ones that can truly change the quality of your videos for an affordable price tag. Now, there's some lenses out there that are thousands of dollars. You could pay $5,000 for a lens. So with these, keep in mind that while they may be a couple $100s in some cases, are still considered very affordable lenses in the world of cameras. So let's first talk about one of the first lenses here. And this is actually the first lens that I got after I had my kit lens, right? So maybe you get a Canon camera and it comes with a kit lens like this one, the 18 to 55. You can probably pick this up for about $50 or $60 on Amazon if you break it and you want a new one, but it's not the best option out there. Sometimes maybe you need to use it for some reason, and I actually used the kit lens for the first year of my videos on YouTube, and it still worked. It was still okay. But if you're gonna look to upgrade your lens, consider getting something like this 50mm lens right here. It's an f1.8, so it's relatively low aperture, and we're gonna explain that in just a second here. But if you want to check this camera lens out or any of the other ones in this video, I will leave links to all of these down in the description below, as well as some of the cameras that I use to make these videos if you're interested in picking them up on Amazon. But this one right here is the 50mm lens, and this really is a true game changer. It's been coined as the nifty 50, and this isn't only for Canon, but you can pick up nifty 50 lenses for Sony or many other cameras as well. But what's great about this is that it has a very, very low aperture. So what this means is that you can have much lower light and still get very high quality videos, but it also gives you this ability to kind of have a blurred background. So in just a second, I'll show you what I mean by this. I'll put the lens on the camera and kind of give you sort of some different examples of what you can do with this lens. But this is about $125 on Amazon for a new lens. You can pick it up used for probably less than $100 somewhere on Amazon. So it's really affordable and it's really great for low light situations. So let me show you what I mean by that. So this is the 50mm lens on the camera right now. As you can see, it's a lot more zoomed in than what I was just previously using, which was the 24mm lens, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But you can see that it's a lot more zoomed in, which can be beneficial, but you're going to want to keep in mind that you're probably going to want more space, so a bigger area, bigger studio, apartment, whatever it is, if you're going to decide to use the 50mm lens. But it's pretty dark outside. I don't have that much light on me, and the quality is still pretty decent. So that's what's pretty nice about using something like the 50mm lens. It's also great for things like if you're using a teleprompter, you want the camera to be pretty far away so that people can't see where your eyes are. So something like the 50mm lens is great for if you're using a teleprompter with your camera, which you can make pretty easily. I used to make teleprompters back in the day with just a shoebox and a piece of glass that I took from a picture frame, so you can learn how to do that as well, but it's great for doing things like that. So let's talk about the next one here, which is going to be a little bit more expensive. It comes in about $249, which, as I said earlier, is still very cheap in the world of camera lenses, but this is the 10 to 18 Canon lens. So this is great for people who maybe want to do some vlogging, some videography that's more so kind of talking to the camera like this, thinking about like the traditional vlogger like Casey Neistat, for example. This is the 10 to 18 lens for that. So you can see that it almost looks a little bit fisheyed. It's a little bit of a bigger lens, but it's great for doing those types of shots. So it almost looks like a GoPro when you zoom it out to 10 millimeters, which I'll show you in just a second here, but it's definitely good for those types of situations. The downsides to it is that you're going to need a lot more light. So the aperture on this is only about, it goes down to about 4.5. So it's going to be darker in a lot of cases. You're going to need to find more light, maybe shoot with it outdoors or on a sunny day so that there's a lot more light filling the area. And that's going to be the only downside to it really that I've seen. Now you can get some more expensive versions of this. I know Casey Neistat uses one I believe is 10 to 22 millimeters and that costs closer to $1,000, but that doesn't fit the budget for this video, so we're going to go with this 10 to 18 one. Now, it's also great that it does stabilize images, so if you're shooting video, you'll see that it's very buttery smooth when you're filming, and it's not sort of shaky. If you use something like the 50 and you're trying to film handheld with it, it's going to appear more shaky because it's sort of more zoomed in, but because this is so zoomed out, for videography, it can be really smooth and really great for those types of shots. So now I'm using the 10 to 18 lens, and you can see how fisheyed it looks. I mean, it looks like I'm so far away from the camera, but this is the same distance from what we just used with the 50 millimeter and with my 24 millimeter, but now we're looking at about 10 millimeter length for this lens, and that's how zoomed out it is. It's pretty insane. Now, the downside of this is that you're going to need more light, okay? So I have 2 studio lights here, but I had to crank up the ISO from where it was at about 100 to now 200 or maybe 250 at the moment to get more light in this apartment here, which is the only downside to it. But you can see how crazy this is. I mean, I am still about maybe about 18 inches away from the lens here, and I feel like I'm about to like eat the lens. That's how close it is to my face. And now I'm literally like 8 inches away, but it still, you know, looks pretty zoomed out for that. So that is the 10 to 18 lens. I'll leave a link down in the description for that one. And let's talk about the final one here, which is actually on the camera right here that I use primarily. And this is the 24 millimeter Canon pancake lens. So this runs at about $129. You can see how tiny this lens is, but this is my go-to. This is what I use all the time to make videos. It's actually the one that I'm using right now on this camera. I have 2 of these lenses because they're so practical for using. Now, it's perfect for the distance. I would say this camera is probably about maybe 4 feet away from me, so it's not too far away versus the 50 millimeter, but the aperture, what we might call the f-stop, is still decently low. So this is a 2.8 aperture, which means that even in relatively low light situations, we can still use it to make pretty good videos. I mean, it's a pretty cloudy day here right now, and I have my ISO set to 100 with just 2 studio lights. So it actually works out pretty well for myself here. And like I said, $129 on Amazon. You can get them used for maybe $100 on Amazon, but it is my go-to. And what's great about it is that if, say, you break the lens or it falls out of your pocket because you're walking around with it, it's not the end of the world. I know it's $129. That could be expensive in some cases depending on your income and everything and your budget. But versus a lens that might cost you thousands of dollars that some professional videographers and photographers use, this is really not too expensive. And I think it's probably, if I could only get one other lens besides the kit lens, it's probably the one that I would go for just because of its practicality that you can use for it. So that's overall those 4 lenses that you could use. Obviously the kit lens, if you have to use it, that's okay, just go for it. But if you're looking to upgrade, I would consider getting one of these 3 lenses, especially the 50 or the 24 millimeter lens. I'll leave those links down in the description below. So if you're interested in them, you can pick them up for your videography in 2020 or later on down the road. So thanks for watching the video. If you're interested in learning about the studio that we use for making YouTube videos and exactly my camera settings, how we fix the audio, how we set up the lighting, the whole studio, how we do everything, then make sure you subscribe to the channel because we're going to release that video sometime next week. So thanks for watching, and I'll see everybody in the next video.